I went to the doctor, and the doctor proceeded to explain what was wrong with me. It was no big deal, but I had to stop the occur in the middle and say, could you just explain that to me in ordinary English so I can understand? Then I got a letter from my bank. I had to reread it twice before I could figure out at all what it was they were saying. And in every case, except for the doctor, I ended up on the phone wasting approximately 20 minutes per phone call to get explanation because they gave me language that I couldn't understand. So raise your hand if this has happened to you. Okay, do we like that? Does it make us feel good about the companies that produce all this material? No. One last quick story. A financial institution recently told me they sent out a letter. The letter started enclosed as your endorsement. I'm thinking Michael Jordan and Nike shoes. And I said, how many phone calls did you get because of this letter? They said they got 10,000 phone calls in the first week asking for an explanation of what this letter said. So imagine how many hours out of their lives, your life, are wasted because language is not understandable. So here's the problem. People are angry. They're disengaged. We're distrustful, we're cynical, we're skeptical. We now suddenly have to be experts on everything. We feel like we're swimming around in this linguistic helplessness. We have to deal with intentional complexity. Trust me doesn't work anymore. At the same time, we've been trained not to read these documents, and raise your hand if you read everything you sign. Okay, good. Good for you. But do you understand? No. Okay, so I'm an advocate of plain language, and I'm really passionate about this because we need simplicity. There's far too much complexity. So plain language is the use of proven, written, and designed strategies that make it easy for the intended audience, because if you're talking to experts or writing to experts, okay to be complex, but most of us are not experts in everything. For the intended audience to find what they want, understand what they read, and then use that information on first reading. All information should be presented as simply as possible. I'm not talking about literature. I'm not talking about, the great works of Shakespeare. I'm talking about the writing that you and I have to read every day to make decisions that make our lives move forward or move backward. And here's where leadership comes in. You know that show, Undercover Boss? So the boss goes undercover and pretends he's ordinary, and then he works his way through whatever system. And somebody from 7-Eleven was on the other night. I don't actually watch it, but I happened to see it, so I thought, well, this is perfect. I would make every leader of every nonprofit, every school, every company read every piece of information that goes to the public, and then see how quickly things change. Because the guy that runs the insurance company likely might not be able to understand the actual insurance policies that we're supposed to understand. And I don't often quote Friedrich Nietzsche, but here I couldn't believe this was terrific. I used to be an existentialist, but that was 10 years ago. Suddenly, my life now has true meaning, and so that's good. But this is what he said. He said, a matter that becomes clear ceases to concern us. So when you have understanding and trust, you no longer have to be fearful. So a couple of points that I'll make, because I'm really squeezed here. New Stanford study that came out, they took a piece of information and they made an easy version, a more complicated version, and a really complicated version. When the readers read the really complicated version, what do you think they thought about the writer? What do you think?
They probably hated it.
Well, they hated it, but what do you think they thought about the writer?
Smart.
Well, now, see, it's hard for me to tell you the answer after you said the word attorney, because they thought the writer was stupid. Not mine, these things. Actually, it's fun to talk to attorneys because bankers are really at the bottom of the barrel now. Attorneys are feeling pretty good. But the point is that we're under the illusion that complex information makes it appear as if the writer is smart, but in fact it does exactly the opposite. We lose trust, we lose credibility, and we lose often we lose clients, we lose consumers, we lose the faith of the public. 63% of people believe that intentional complexity caused the downfall of the financial industry. So where's the leadership there? 66% think the government does a terrible job of communicating with the public. So where's leadership there? On the other hand, there's a new study also from Notre Dame. I'm a professor. I have to pull this, I have to get the study, so otherwise it's just Deborah. Corporate reputation is directly tied to the ability for people to understand communication from that company. Corporate reputation is tied to the ability for people to read and understand the information that comes from that company. Increased profits, increased numbers, and I think this is even more important. What plain language does is it gives us the ability to fully participate in democracy, because we cannot vote if we don't understand the ballot. We can't make choices about health care if we don't understand the choices. We can't comply with regulations and laws when we don't understand the regulations and the laws. And then two quick things, another study, but this was of legal documents. The use of plain language increased comprehension between 15 and 100%. Because the language was easier to read, the documents were easier to read, more likely to be read, made it easier to comply, they were strongly preferred by the readers, they were less likely to cause mistakes, they caused fewer lawsuits, they decreased litigation. And so finally I'm going to leave you with two quotes from two geniuses. The first one, Albert Einstein. He said, "If you can't explain it, you don't understand it." The second genius is me. And I leave you with, it's easy to be complex, it's hard to be simple. And leaders need to understand that clarity through the use of plain language will make our economy more vital, our lives easier, our trust deeper, and our democracy stronger. And who could object to that?